All right, we have a whole host of new Nintendo Switch 2 news and updates to go over today. The first of which having to do with a very interesting one surrounding Nintendo Switch Online, and specifically this time for the Switch 2, because you guys probably remember a thing back in late, I believe October timeframe last year, where Nintendo did a online play test for Nintendo Switch Online for a new game that is mysterious in nature. And while I actually got into that playtest program and checked out a little bit of the game, you couldn't really share any screenshots of it, and it felt like maybe this is going to be a game that actually comes to fruition and hits the online services like an additional benefit, or maybe it's just something that is Nintendo testing the servers on the back end for like an MMO style game. Well, anyway, that's back in the Switch 2 generation, and it is outlined that you can be a part of this playtest for the Switch 2. So I definitely want to highlight that. Then we have probably our first piece of good news from a publisher that has historically worked with key cards in the physical releases for Nintendo Switch 2 so far, now going the route of full physical on cartridge for an upcoming game. And it's actually a big one because one, it's a big publisher, and two, while this is no kind of confirmation we're going to see it go more in this direction, it is kind of an interesting choice if you look at the titles they've released so far, and also this maybe being or some reason to believe that this was a last minute decision of some sort. And maybe that has to do with the sales performance, maybe it doesn't, but we'll dive into all of that. There are then a few different Switch 2 games that are actually available on the eShop via a discount right now that I want to just briefly highlight, because while Switch 1 games that are compatible with Switch 2 go on sale pretty regularly at this point, it's not very often we actually see games that are made straight up for the Switch 2 on discount, and there are a few to highlight. Then we have to go over the recent news that hit via the Donkey Kong Bonanza craziness, but we know the actors for the Legend of Zelda movie, and if you own Cyberpunk 2077, you might want to update it and check out some of the brand new content that is coming very soon in a patch for the game that I will highlight with you all as well. So we'll break down all of this info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first kick off this conversation right over at VGC, where you can see the headline, which outlines Nintendo is bringing back its mysterious online playtest from last year. Nintendo tested an unannounced online game. We will perform another test in the Nintendo Switch Online playtest program. Nintendo said on social media from 8 a.m. Pacific time on July 21st, Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members can apply to participate on a first come, first served basis. Applications are now open for the second test, which Nintendo describes as the same service for which we performed a test in October 2024 and will be available on both Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. Those who participate in the previous playtest can also participate in this playtest, Nintendo said. For this test, Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members can apply to participate individually or as a group. So, a couple things to note if you do actually want to apply for this, and I will have this linked in my description down below. You have to be a current expansion pack member already enrolled into the service. The playtest period is going to be from July 28th, which will start at 6 p.m. Pacific time until Sunday, August 10th. And that will be on ending at 5:59 Pacific time. The application qualifications must be expansion pack member, and that has to be as of the 17th at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So pretty much by the time you're seeing this, you would have already needed to be an expansion pack member. You can't upgrade now and then apply. Then you'll go ahead and apply directly on their website. Playable content is the same whether you apply as a group or an individual. A portion of your save data will be shared among the group members on the participant website. And now this is the key part, because Nintendo did do this last time. We request that you do not discuss or disclose content from either the Nintendo Switch Online playtest program, test software, or website with others. If you participate as a group, you may communicate and exchange information as long as it remains within the bounds of your group. So you can pretty much talk about the details and share stuff amongst the group, but outside of that on the internet, we did actually see Nintendo strike that content down, and you can't actually upload it, even though I have, I think, like still an hour and a half or 2 hour recording of my own gameplay session. I can't put it in a video because Nintendo legitimately strikes that stuff. So then we also have, or maybe not strikes it, but they literally request it to be taken down, like it can't be online. So you can create an application as soon as the 18th at 3 p.m. All the way until a Monday on the 21st, which is actually when you will apply. So basically you can come here to advance to the application creation and get your application done ahead of time. But then the actual application window, if you want to try to get into this program, is going to be from the 21st at 8 a.m. Pacific time, all the way until Wednesday, which will be the 23rd at 7:59 a.m. Pacific time. Just count on this thing. It's first come, first served basis. The last time they had a big window like this too, where it was a couple days you could apply. That thing was legitimately filled up and completely accounted for like immediately. So people either knew they were in or not selected very quickly after applying. And it seemed like right away, even people who were there on the button on the minute that the clock turned to the application opening, you still didn't have a guarantee to get into this program. And it did seem like there was far more interest in people trying to get in than there would be for spots available, essentially. So in case you're not familiar with what kind of gameplay loop this is, it's kind of interesting. Like, you're in basically like a dark type of world and you're building kind of these beacons of light that you're working to get up as high as you can, build some type of tower or get to the top of a tower to basically put your beacon of light up as high as you can. And then that illuminates an area that you can then create stuff within that area that's illuminated. Some of the details are escaping me now since it's been a little while since I played it, and I only played it a couple hours at that. It really did not hook me in a big way, but this is definitely Nintendo like experimenting with some kind of brand new MMO gameplay world where, you know, there's tons of characters that are all working within the same world. There was no voice chat or anything like that, but now that we know that game chat is a thing for the Switch 2, it's maybe possible that they let you do proximity chat or something like that. We've even seen Nintendo file patents around where if you're close to somebody, you could just talk to them. Although I still think Nintendo's going to lock down game chat to just your friends list. So you can, you know, see other people in the world, see what they're progressing towards, and kind of you're all working together towards one central goal, which is illuminating and creating and building within this world. It kind of, you know, I've seen a lot of people compare it to like a mix between a Minecraft / Roblox type of gameplay experience. And like, it was fun, but if it stays in its current form and not a whole lot has been added or changed, I don't see it being a big hook for me or anything like that. But I do like the idea of Nintendo expanding these online services, you know, to be able to support things like MMO games with a bunch of players all in the world on the console at the same time. And then also it will be interesting to see if the graphics have a noticeable upgrade on the Switch 2 version, because this will be running on the Switch 2 in addition to the Switch 1 for the first time. So they may have added a lot of content. There could be a lot more depth to it this time around. It very much felt like a test in an unfinished game when I played it last time, with just the core mechanics being in place and stuff like that. But I do kind of suspect that if this ultimately comes to market for Nintendo Switch Online, it'll just be thrown into the expansion pack. Like, I actually think that this is going to be one of those online community games that's just there because you are an expansion pack member. And, you know, I'll have my eyes on this once again because it's a Switch 2 version this time. And I will be trying to apply for the playtest, and I can definitely talk about what the experience is, but I will not be able to share any actual gameplay information or anything like that because Nintendo, we found out, comes after that stuff online rather quickly. So let me know in the comments down below if you're interested in the playtest and if you're going to be applying, and if you did get in or see a lot of the footage online, are you personally interested in this game at all? So from there, we're going to talk about really kind of a good news story around the game keycard situation. And while this is by no stretch of the imagination confirmation that publishers are going the route of physical on-game cartridges from here or anything like that, I still think you can make an argument that this is some level of indication that consideration was at least taken for this decision. And really, this is a publisher who, it is Sega, by the way, who up to this point in time has not only released numerous game key cards in their physical releases for the Switch 2, but also with a game like Sonic X Shadow Generations, which has a Switch 1 version, then they turned around and released a Switch 2 version. It had no upgrade path, no discounts available, no way to take advantage of owning the Switch 1 version of Sonic X Shadow Generations. If you did pick up the game like I did, then you just had to buy it straight out new for the Switch 2. So that there was a lot of issue with how they handled that kind of particular upgrade situation. And now we just kind of have the best of all worlds from Sega when it comes to Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, because you can see this next article over at VGC, which says Sonic Racing Cross Worlds Switch 2 will have cross progression and the full game on cartridge. Sega details Nintendo's version of its upcoming racer. And you have the publisher has confirmed that the Switch 2 version of the racer will release digitally first. And that's a key word there, which also leads into the idea that maybe this was a last minute decision. First this holiday season, followed by a physical version early next year, the full base game on the cartridge. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds will release first on PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch on September 25th. There will be a Switch 2 upgrade pack available for owners of the Switch version, with content and progression able to carry over to the newer console version when it eventually releases, Sega said. Along the Switch 2 news, Sega has published a new cross-world trailer focusing on customization and gadget features. So, in addition to that, just to kind of highlight all the Q&A, when is the Switch 2 version coming out? So the exact answer from Sega is the Nintendo Switch 2 digital version will launch holiday 2025. The physical version will launch early 2026. How much is the Switch 2 version going to cost? The standard edition will cost $69.99 USD, and the digital deluxe edition will cost $89.99 USD. Will the game be included on the cartridge, or is it a download key? The physical version will feature the full base game on a 64GB cartridge, so there's your answer, outlining it perfectly. Will there be an upgrade path from Switch to Switch 2? Yes, there is a $10 USD upgrade path for Nintendo Switch, Switch OLED model, and Switch Lite users. Will the progress carry over from Switch to Switch 2? Yes, the paid upgrade pack content progress will carry over to the Nintendo Switch 2. Will there be a Switch 2 version of Limited Run Games Collector's Edition available? No, there will not be a Limited Run Games Collector's Edition available for the Switch 2. And is there cross-play possible on this version? Yes, cross-platform matchmaking will be available for Nintendo Switch 2. So all around the board, a good news scenario other than the obvious delay of this version of the game. So if you want to pick up Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, well, you have to wait until early 2026 for the Switch 2 physical release. Now, while I would normally just say that's a bad thing all the way around, it really calls into question for me if this was actually a shift in Sega's decision for how to go forward with this game, because it's still a $70 price point. It's a standard price release. Yes, that is technically a higher dollar amount that maybe they felt comfortable leaning into the way of a on cartridge experience. And for anything under that 70 threshold, we just still don't see them do that. But the fact that the Switch 2 physical version is not coming out until early 2026, when obviously they would like to have that on the retail shelves during the holiday season, it does make me actually question if this was some kind of response to the sales figures of game key cards or the overall online sentiment around them, and Sega kind of realizing that at least the core fan base right now that wants to go out and buy physical games wants that data on the cartridge. And so maybe they pivoted last moment to be able to actually support that option, and that is in turn why we won't get it the same release window as the other versions, which, to be clear, you could technically pick up a Switch 1 version, play a downgraded game for the moment, or just get it physically for Switch 1 and buy the upgrade pack for Switch 2. Those are all options on the table and everything, but I think you want this game for Switch 2 because it's going to clearly run at 60 FPS versus something like 30 and severe graphical downgrades on the Switch version. So I would definitely opt for the Switch 2 version if you can. But I do like to see this from Sega. Granted, the delay part is not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but the more publishers that are big like this, that in the past they haven't opted for an on cartridge release, and now we're seeing them support this for an upcoming release, and it seems like there's some evidence to support that it may have been a pivot. I like this. I do think that there's at least a sliver of hope that amongst Nintendo asking their own community in Japan like how they're feeling about game key cards, and if it's going to potentially deter them from picking up games, and if they know what a game key card it is and all that stuff, like Nintendo's investigating this. Online fans are definitely speaking out against game key cards and really wanting that physical on cartridge option. And now we're seeing a publisher that's, just hasn't opted to go this way before, start to present it as an option for an upcoming release. So maybe a sign of good things to come, maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, from there, I want to highlight over at Deku Deals, which Nintendo did highlight over on X, and that's how I saw all of this information. But the following 3 games on screen that you can see here are all discounted and they all are for Nintendo Switch 2. Granted, they have Switch 1 versions other than Cyberpunk, but No Man's Sky is available right now for 60% off, so it is $23.99, and you might remember that this got a very notable free upgrade pack for the Nintendo Switch 2 because it quite literally overhauls the entire graphical outlook of this game. It looks and runs like a modern console generation version of it, as opposed to where it was before, which was definitely, you know, you were making sacrifices to get this thing to run on the original Switch, and now the texture quality, the world detail, everything vastly upgraded, and at a $23.99 price point. If you don't own that, I do think it's worth looking into if it's your style of game or not. Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, Gate Rune, and Dunan Unification Wars. I'm not familiar with the series, if you can't tell. I actually do know the name of the series, but I'm not familiar with exactly the details of everything. Anyway, it's 20% off, $10 right now, savings as opposed to the $50 price point. That you can pick up directly for the Switch 2 console for $39.99. So you may want to look into that as well. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, while it's not a big discount, it is 10% off. It's one of the Switch 2 launch games. It's already going on sale. Instead of the $70 full retail, you can pick it up for $62.99. And there is actually an update patch that we're going to highlight in just a moment for that game, but obviously it being one of the big visual showpieces for the Switch 2 launch and one of the big launch games from a third-party perspective, you know, it's one that it's a nice one to own for the console, so it probably will continue to get discounted long term, but to my knowledge, this is the first time we've seen any kind of price slash since it launched on June 5th with the console itself. Okay, last couple stories to close this out here. So Nintendo has revealed that Bo Braxton as Zelda and Benjamin Evan Ainsworth as Link in the Legend of Zelda movie. And I'm sure you've seen this at this point in time. This kind of dropped during the lead up to Donkey Kong Bonanza, and we've been talking about that on the channel. But the following two actors that you see on screen will be Princess Zelda and Link. And this is pretty exciting because these are both kind of more actors that don't have an established reputation right now, that at least in like a large scale, like if there were rumors of like Tom Holland being Link and stuff like that, and you know, whenever you go that big name, it's going to be hard to disassociate them from the other roles you've seen them play. And I actually do think that with actors like this that can really make their name and come into their own in this role, it's probably a better decision overall. The ages, I believe, are like 17 for Evan and like 21 for Bo, so both on the younger end, and especially Evan kind of probably growing up into that, you know, younger Link role originally, to where if we see like a trilogy type of movie, like I think a lot of people think Nintendo will end up sticking to some type of trilogy story arc for the Legend of Zelda, you know, live action series, that will be really cool to see. Like he may end up, you know, 22, 23, 24 by the end of the last movie and stuff, so we'll kind of see him mature from like a younger Link into a more established, older, confident Link, you know. So there's some upside to this. I personally think that they're great choices. I'm not concerned one way or the other at this point. It's just going to be hopefully Nintendo delivers on the lore and story and world and setting that the Legend of Zelda has available to it, and in a live action setting, they surely cannot mess this up. Let's hope. So I'm very cautiously optimistic on this movie at the moment, and obviously we'll have to wait and see what trailers look like and stuff like that leading into its ultimate release later on in 2027. So from here, we do have, to close this out, CD Projekt Red launches 2.3 update patch for Cyberpunk 2077. So CD Projekt Red is releasing the 2.3 update for Cyberpunk 2077 on July 17th. The new update doesn't just fix specific bugs in the Night City world and missions, it also adds new vehicles, photo mode, auto drive feature, a tab for time of day and weather, and other quality of life improvements. The newly patched game is available on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, Mac with Apple Silicon, and PC. The update for Nintendo Switch 2 will launch at a later date. Now, they say this in the actual post, but it's funny because if you go to the post and say that it says that it will arrive later on Switch 2, then it's somewhere down here, maybe it's not going to be in this thread of the reply, but anyway, it's like a 1-day delay or something like that it was replied to. This game, I believe, is already updated for the Switch 2 as we speak. And yes, in fact, I did just find the post here. It says update 2.3 is being rolled out to Nintendo Switch 2 as we speak. And somebody replied, I thought you meant a few days or weeks later, not 20 mins. And then the account just goes surprise. So basically, just go ahead and update your Switch 2 version of this game. If you want to hop back in and check out these quality of life improvements, there's a whole host of the outline details that you can find through the links that I have in the descriptions if you actually want to read through all the patch notes and stuff like that, because they have added quite a bit in there, it does look like. But new content, which is always exciting if you do own the game already, and even if you don't, it's available on a 10% discount right now. So let me know in the comments down below what you make of all the different stories we talked about today. Are you interested at all in this online playtest program for NSO now that it's coming to Switch 2? What do you think of Sega opting for an on-cartridge experience for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds? And do you think that that's a good indication that maybe Sega will start to go more in that direction with games going forward, and just game key cards as a whole? Do you think that we're going to see them actually shift to less and less of those throughout this console generation? Are you picking up any new Nintendo Switch 2 games this week? What do you think of the Zelda actor and actress that has been revealed for the live action movie? And are you going to update and check out any of the new content in Cyberpunk 2077? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.